All right, welcome to our week 5 session this week. If you can believe we're in week 5, it's amazing. We're talking about revision this week. You guys have an argumentative essay due in lesson 25. So I want to just touch base with you about our idea of revision. Obviously, I want you to love revision. It's my ultimate goal, but our overall objective is to be able to evaluate a draft of writing for use of ideas, content, organization, voice, word choice, and sentence fluency. That's a mouthful of stuff right there that you have to do. And we're going to take a look at it and all those different elements of revision and what to prioritize and how to work through the process. I have so many people that say to me, oh, I don't revise. I just sit down and write. I do my best work under pressure. I don't need to review my work. You know, everybody needs to review their work. The best authors in the world revise their work and have multiple revision processes. So taking a few moments to go back and revise your essay is only going to make it stronger and make you understand the process better, and it's going to make me a happier teacher. So I'm going to give you the first part of your access code before we move forward into the lesson. It's going to be just one word today, all lowercase. And the first two letters are M and O. M, O, write them down. You'll hear the remaining letters later in the video. All right, so with revision, we have some options here, right? Revising includes evaluating and refining the rough draft for clarity and effectiveness. Basically, you're asking yourself, does this draft say what I want it to say? We need to make sure that we have a clear grasp on our intention when we revise so we can look through our writing and be able to identify that we've met all of our goals. So if our thesis statement is not clear, we should be able to catch that in revision because we look at our thesis statement and ask, am I communicating all of my ideas clearly in this essay? And am I utilizing the right amount of sources and reasoning and evidence to back up my claim? Why do we revise? Like I mentioned, so many people say, oh, I don't need to do that. But writing is a journey. It's a process. It's never truly complete. When we revise, we rethink our points and we determine, is this worth saying? Am I saying it well enough? Will the reader understand what I'm saying? And how can I make it better? These are all things that we want. All right, so if we're looking at revision versus editing, I get a lot of questions about what is the difference between the two. Revision is to see again the ideas that you're presenting, rewording, fixing fluency issues, fixing spelling mistakes. That's all editing. Revision is rethinking and reworking the ideas themselves, identifying what our main goal is and whether or not we've reached that goal. The rest of it, the sentence fragments, the misspelled words, the capitalization, spelling, etc., all of that is editing. All right, so this always helps me looking at the Venn diagram of revision and editing. Revising makes it sound better, adding, changing, deleting parts of the piece to help the writing flow, turning worn out words into vivid words, coming up with an interesting lead that hooks the reader and a conclusion that sums things up, adding specific descriptions, explanations, details, organizing your ideas in an order that makes more sense, omitting or removing elements of the text that are heavy or cumbersome or not on topic. Editing makes it look better, changing letters to capital or lowercase, correcting those misspelled words, the punctuation, indenting your paragraphs, etc. That's the formatting, the look of it. The crossover between the two is helping the reader understand what we're writing about, helping the reader read along smoothly and improving the quality of the writing. That's the overlap. So they both have the end goal of doing those things. But revising is the content, editing is the way it looks. So here are some revision steps that I want you to focus on, especially when you're going through revising your essay this week. I want you to think about the larger issues of the paper. Do you prove or answer your thesis? So I like to go into my essay and highlight my thesis. What do I think my thesis is? And identify, is it clear? Is my thesis clear? And then in the essay, do I address all the components of my thesis? If I'm identifying 3 different elements of my topic that I'm trying to convince you about, do I cover all three in my essay? And then as I read through the essay, is my thesis proven? Has it changed with the use of my evidence? And do I reach a different conclusion by the end of the essay? And if that's the case, I need to go back to my introduction and change the thesis so that it identifies what I have been writing about. Check your focus. Are you clear and focused throughout your paper? Do you stay on topic? You aren't talking about the beaches in Costa Rica when you're writing about China, right? You want to make sure that you focus entirely on your topic and that you don't stray. A lot of times we do that when we're just writing in the moment and we're like almost free writing it and turn it in. Our topic starts as one thing and then we stray off topic and then we pull it back together at the end. But that middle part of your essay, not good. Is your introduction a true representation of what your readers can expect from the paper? This connects back to whether or not if your thesis has changed. You want to make sure that as your reader reads your intro and your thesis, they understand the argument that you're making and what your goal is by the end of the paper, what you're trying to convince them of. Is your paper balanced? Do you address each aspect of your argument? Does the organizational pattern of the paper make sense? And is your conclusion stimulating and thought-provoking? So you want to make sure that for a balanced paper that you do address each component of your argument. You aren't just mentioning it. If it's in your thesis statement, it should at least have one full paragraph focused entirely on that topic. Does the organizational pattern of the paper make sense? Do you have headings in there that might clarify the organizational structure of your essay? Do you progress through the essay in an appropriate way? And then your conclusion should, especially in an argumentative essay, you should have a call to action in that conclusion. So you want to make sure that you leave your reader with something to think about. All right. The next letter in your access code is V. The letter V is in Victor. So you got your first two letters at the start. Now you have the letter V, and we're going to move on to some examples of revision. So we're going to take a look now at some revision steps. Now, as I told you in the previous videos, we want to look through and make sure that we're covering all of the elements of our argument, that we're introducing our topic succinctly, that we have a good hook, etc. So those are the things we're going to focus on. We're not going to identify or go through an entire essay, but we are going to look at the argument in the essay, and we are going to look at the perspective and the voice in the essay right now. So in this first opening, I want you to pause the video and take a look at and read those first opening paragraphs, and then I'm going to talk about them. Okay, so when we look at these first two body paragraphs, my alarm goes off and I can't open my eyes because I am so tired. So we have a hook, we have introduced an anecdote. Personally, because it's an argumentative essay and it's a formal essay and this speaks to voice and tone, I want you to be somewhat removed from your topic. That's how you engage your reader and how you begin to develop a relationship with him or her. If the reader finds it to be too personal and too focused on you and your experiences, then you lose some credibility. So for the revision, I changed the anecdote to being a little more innocuous, a little bit more removed. Buzz, buzz, the alarm sounds before the average teenager has had the recommended amount of sleep to be rested and functional at the highest level. So we're still talking about alarms going off and teens being tired, but we remove ourselves a little bit from that equation. If we want to use an anecdote later in the essay, we can, but I would not make it about ourselves as the writer. We would want to choose a subject to highlight in the essay that isn't ourselves. The second thing I want to take a look at in the first two paragraphs is the thesis statement. In the U.S., there are a lot of schools that start too early. I'm here in the second paragraph. Right here. Schools in the United States start too early. I think schools should start later. This is the argument. Schools start too early. I think schools should start later. So again, we have the personal pronoun I. We don't want to start that way. We can just remove these here and have schools should start later. This is the main argument, right? We're arguing that schools should have later start times. We can remove the qualifying I think. Obviously, the writer believes that because he or she is writing the essay. So you can remove that language. School should start later. Okay, well, let's scroll down here to the revision. that thesis statement gives us not much to go on. If we look at the revision, we can look down here at this thesis statement. School start times for both middle and high school should be set later to accommodate teenage sleep patterns, to boost learning, boost engagement in the classroom, and to allow students to perform at their highest level. So now what I've done is I've identified my argument. School should start later. School start time should be later, but here is why. If you remember in the previous video, we want to make sure we are outlining in our essays the main point that we're going to cover. We want our reader to know exactly where they're going. So it's like a roadmap. So in my revision, I'm going to say, oh, I didn't identify the main subjects and the main points in my essay. I'm going to put it in my introduction. We're going to talk about teenage sleep patterns and how sleeping later can help boost learning, how later start times can boost engagement in the classroom, and how students perform at their highest level when they're rested. These are the 3 main points of my argument that I'm going to make. So they definitely should be relevant to my thesis, and they should be present in my thesis. And so when I'm revising, these are the things I'm going to be looking at. How can I change this thesis statement, school time should start later, to incorporate the main supporting elements of my argument? All right, so your last 2 letters of your access code for this week's session are I and E. So hopefully you have the first 3 letters from earlier on in the video. If you have any questions, let me know. You are going to be using your argumentative essay in the quiz responses. So when you go to take the quiz, make sure you have that essay handy so that you can utilize that and the steps and the process of completing your quiz. Let me know if you have any questions.